Tonight I'm going to be preaching out of Ephesians chapter 5. And the title of the message is, Do You Have a Resolution Now? And we'll start in verse 1 and we'll read through verse 17. Paul writes, Be ye therefore followers of God, as dear children, and walk in love, as Christ also hath loved us, and hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanliness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becometh saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them, for ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light, for whatsoever doth make manifest is light. Wherefore he saith, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. So I'm going to be skipping around a little bit tonight, but I want us to remember chapter 5, verse 16, redeeming the time because the days are evil. So as I said, the title of tonight's message is, Do You Have a Resolution Now? This is the time of year when, according to popular culture, we're supposed to reflect on the past year and make resolutions for the new year. I've never been one to make a New Year's resolution, but I do reflect quite a lot. And if I were to think about the last year, I could think of, well, I moved down here to a new state. I got married to my wonderful wife. I got a new job, and I joined the church here. And I praise the Lord for all that, but all of that occurred within about a month. A lot more happened in my life last year. Most of it's not very memorable, but I do remember my successes and my failures. And I try to make improvements in areas where I failed, and I try to keep doing the things that I'm good at. And I try not to do the things that I do badly. And I think if I were to stop there, most people would think that's pretty normal. Most people, or some people at least, would try to improve on areas that they're weak in, and they'd want to keep doing the things that they're good at. It just feels good to do the stuff we're good at. We like to feel like we've accomplished something. And our culture today is a self-help culture. People use books and they use the internet to do things for themselves that somebody else would normally have had to do for them. And they do that, and sometimes they look at what they've done and they say, look at what I've accomplished. Look at what I have done. I did that. But for Bible believers, life should not be that way. We should not say to ourselves that we have accomplished anything apart from God. An English New Year's resolution was titled, A Resolve for Every Morning of the New Year, and said this: I will this day try to live a simple, sincere, and serene life, repelling promptly every thought of discontent, anxiety, discouragement, impurity, self-seeking, cultivating cheerfulness, magnanimity, charity, and the habit of holy silence, exercising economy in expenditure, carefulness in conversation, diligence in appointed service, fidelity to every trust, and a childlike trust in God. That sounds like a great New Year's resolution to me. But if I was ever to try to do that on my own, I would fail completely. Because anything done apart from God is done by me. And but if we, as Christians, if we involve God in the process, if we seek His will for our lives, we'll succeed because it's of God. Romans 8:28 puts it this way, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. I don't want anybody to think that I'm up here trying to preach some type of a prosperity gospel, because that's not what I'm intending to do. What I'm saying is that time is something that's given to us by God, and it is wasted when we are not living it according to His will for our lives. Paul wasn't writing to the Ephesians to tell them to cash in their time when he said to redeem it. He didn't say to redeem it because the years or the months or the weeks were evil. He said to redeem it because the days are evil. What he meant was that the believers were supposed to rescue their time from imminent loss every day. If we're not careful, just flipping through the television or surfing the internet, wasting a few minutes of time, we'll expose ourselves to evil in every area of life rather than the wholesome things of God. There are those people who would put off making a salvation decision, or a decision to serve the Lord in church, or a decision to live a holy life at home. We should not be as those in James chapter 4 who say, "Today or tomorrow we go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain." And James continues, "Whereas ye know that not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away." God compares our lives to a vapor to show how short they are. A vapor is something in a transitory state. It's not a solid, it's not a liquid. It's something that's here today and gone tomorrow. One of the most recognizable vapors that I can think of is a cloud. Have you ever looked at a cloud, looked at the clouds, and you saw all the different shapes and the different shades of the clouds? Each one is different. It's impossible to know where and what they will look like. But we know one thing for sure: they will disappear. And as a cloud or vapor passes away quickly, so does the life of man. God also, to show how temporary our lives here are, God compares our lives to a flower. In chapter 14, verse 2, Job writes of man that he cometh forth like a flower and is cut down. Many things describe a flower: its beauty, its having a good smell, the variety of its color, or it's soft to the touch. Flowers are a nice centerpiece to have on our tables. They're nice to have at weddings, and they're a nice gesture to give to somebody special. But flowers sure fade quickly, don't they? A flower is often cut down while it's budding, and in the same way, many people are cut off in the flower of their lives by natural causes such as sickness or accidental death. And if a flower is not cut off, it will surely wither away and be gone. A third thing God compares our lives to is a shadow. In 1 Chronicles 29:15, David wrote, "Our days on earth are as a shadow, and there is none abiding." This morning, while we were coming to church, we were listening to Genesis, and I kept hearing about men who lived 800 or 900 years. It seems like our society is obsessed with extending human life by every means possible. Some ways that they talk about are crazy. But life is very short compared to the way that it was before the flood, isn't it? And man's life is much shorter when we compare it to God's eternity. This should be a great motive for us to redeem our time now and not wait for tomorrow. New Year's is a time for celebration. It's a time for people to start fresh, to reflect on what life was like in the previous year and how they can make improvements to it. These plans should be different between believers and unbelievers. All of our best laid plans depend on life continuing. And Christians should not be like the rich man in Luke chapter 12. Actually, let's turn there right now. Luke chapter 12. Starting in verse 16. This is Jesus speaking. "And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no more room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, This I will do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward God. Instead of earthly pleasures, our minds should be focused on eternity, knowing that, as Hebrews 10:34 states, we have in heaven a better and enduring substance. The shortness of life should motivate us to resolve to use our labors to get people to heaven and to live holy lives pleasing to God.